Welcome to the Sent from Disneyland podcast.
Here age relives fond memories of the past.
If it's your first time joining us, welcome. On this episode, we'll take a journey into the past and explore Disneyland and Disneyland history with mementos, snapshots, and postcards sent from Disneyland from 1955 to the present. Today, I'm starting off by thanking my patrons from patreon.com. You can join and receive mail from my desk or from my Disneyland trips. Special thanks to Random Olive, the first patron to this podcast, and to the e-ticket patrons Tania, Eric Daniels, Joe Gamble, Scott Booker, Monica Seitz Vega, Russ Romano, Michael and Christina Cross, Scott Cagle, and Sheila Harry. C-ticket patrons Serious Inquiries Only, Debbie Weinstein, Jennifer Schneep, Grace Coate, Ben and Noel Bruning, Patty Wolin, Angela Reynolds, and Aaron Moran. B-ticket patrons The Disney Rewind Podcast, Jeff and Paige Orton, and Joshua, and Exorable Tosh Bell. And the A-ticket patrons, Elise Sharp, Zealot Infinity, Alexis Robles, Maggie and Henry Byers, Angel DeBlois, and the All Aboard podcast. You can also sign up for my new newsletter for a chance to get some postcards delivered by the USPS to your mailbox. I am your host, your post-host Clocky, and today we have 2 postcards sent from Disneyland. The front of our first postcard has a view of Town Square. You can see City Hall, the Emporium, and the Disneyland Band playing music near the flagpole. Getting ready to head down Main Street, you can also see the fire engine, the horse-drawn streetcar, the omnibus, and one of the horseless carriages. On the back it reads, Town Square. Main Street's Town Square represents the typical small town in the early 1900s, where the gas lamp is gradually being replaced by electricity. The plodding horse-drawn streetcar is giving way to the chugging horseless carriage. It's postmarked July 19, 1964, with an Anaheim cancel and a 5-cent black and white George Washington postage stamp, Scott number 1213. I assume they visit the park on Saturday, July 18th, when park hours were from 9 a.m. to 1 a.m. The weather was a high of 81 and a low of 62. Park attendance that day was 47,557. It's addressed to Mr. and Mrs. I. Ross of Berkeley, California. It reads, We are having a wonderful stay. Sheila and Dotson. Along with collecting Disneyland postcards, photos, and maps, I also have a small collection of adjacent items like coins, stamps, and address books. I have 3 address books in my collection, which isn't a lot, but you must consider the ephemeral nature of an address book. Most people would fill the address book with addresses and phone numbers. Once the address book was full, a person may buy a new one to update the addresses and throw the outdated book away. This practice is likely almost extinct now, with cell phones holding contact information and less need to have physical addresses versus email addresses to contact a person or a family. The 3 I have in my collection are completely unused. The largest of the 3 is likely to be the newest as well. The general style of the book gives it a late 1960s to mid-1970s feel. It has a bright red cover with shiny gold embossed design elements. The book measures around 6 inches by 3.5 inches and only about 2/3 of an inch thick, with rounded edges. The cover has 2 borders, a single row of 94 classic 3-circle Mickey Mouse images, making a rectangle around the edge of the cover, and inside the Mickeys, a gold rectangle outline. The bottom half of the cover has the words address and telephone in a 1960s style typeface. The 2 words are stacked and are in a wavy style, with the word address starting with 3 larger letters and getting smaller, and the word telephone starting with smaller letters and growing after the first 4 letters. The top half of the cover has the older Disneyland Castle logo with the word Disneyland in the classic Gothic Disneyland font. Under Disneyland, there is a copyright C with Walt Disney and Productions written and spaced out by the Y in Disneyland. The inside page's 4 edges are gold. The pages are tabbed out by the 26 letters of the alphabet. Each letter has its initial tab with 1 additional page, except Z, which is followed by 7 pages. Each page is printed with specific lines for name, street, city, and phone, and has room for 7 entries on the front page and 7 more on the back. Including a few additional spaces for addresses on the book's flyleaf and end paper, the address book could hold over 475 addresses. Finally, the inside back cover has Japan printed on the bottom right-hand corner of the page, signifying where it was made. I purchased this address book on eBay a few years ago. Great news! Enfield Post is back up on Etsy. Grabbing some vintage stamps is a great way to plus your mail. Whether you're trying to match the color of your postcard or envelope, or adding a themed stamp to the back of your mail, be sure to check out Enfield Post. You can head over to EnfieldPost.com and explore all the different vintage stamps you can use on your next card or letter. That's ENFIELDPOST on Instagram and EnfieldPost.com for your wedding and vintage postage needs. Enfield Post is the official postage stamp sponsor of the Sent from Disneyland podcast. The front of our next postcard has 4 images: Sleeping Beauty Castle with a single guest on the drawbridge, an image of the Mark Twain leaving the dock around the rivers of America, and in the distance you can see Rainbow Ridge, an image of the Jungle Cruise with a skipper pointing his gun towards a charging hippo, and the entrance to Tomorrowland, where you can see the People Mover coming in and out of buildings, and guests walking by the colorful purple and yellow flowers near Adventures Through Inner Space and Circle Vision. On the back it reads, 1. Sleeping Beauty Castle, 2. Mark Twain Steamboat, 3. Jungle Cruise, 4. Tomorrowland. It's postmarked August 13, 1973 with a Huntington Beach cancel and a 6-cent National Park Centennial Wolf Trap Farm, Virginia postage stamp, Scott number 1452. I assume they visited the park on Tuesday, August 14, 1973, when park hours were from 8 a.m. to 1 a.m. The weather was a high of 84 and a low of 63. It's addressed to Robert Specht of Rochester, New York. It reads, Hi Bob, really enjoyed the cool weather, especially the nights here. Kurt Voigtman. The first Disneyland address book I found while antiquing in Detroit, and my most recently purchased Disneyland address book was found by my friend and friend of the podcast, Kayla, at an antique store in Orange County. Both address books are similar but have some slight variations. They're just under 4 inches tall by 3 3/4 inches and about a ½ inch thick with rounded edges. The covers have a border of a simple repeated flower design on the outside of a double outline of a rectangle. The top of the cover has the words address and telephone with a zigzag rectangular border. Below is a line drawing of Sleeping Beauty Castle with a Gothic font letter D placed on top of the image of the castle. Below the castle is written Copyright Walt Disney Productions. All the lettering and images were done with a dull gold coloring. The differences between the two books include the color. One is a dark red and the other is a pale pink, and the red cover looks more embossed with a deeper press versus the pink, which looks more printed than embossed, with some slight variations in the design of the castle. Moving to the back cover, both have the word Japan embossed with no color. Each has a slight variation on the size and typeface of the word. The red cover address book still has its original blue price tag, which reads Disneyland in black, underlined and in the Gothic font, followed by 4 lines printed in purple, with the price 25 cents, the sales tax 1 cent, the total 26 cents, and a line which reads 010115M9. I assume that's a product code for inventory. The pages inside have the same gold foredge as the larger book and are tabbed out A through Z, but the consistency of the number of pages seems random. In the red cover book, the letters A, B, C, I, R, U, and V have 1 additional page, with the letter Z having 4 additional pages. Then in the pink cover book, the letters B, E, F, G, and H have 1 additional page, the letter A has 2 additional pages, and the letter Z has 4 additional pages. There doesn't seem to be a reason for the additional pages, and as far as I can tell, no pages have been ripped out. All 3 of my address books are like new with no writing on the inside. The pages of my dark red and pale pink address book are identical, with room for 5 addresses per page and 3 lines per address, and sectioned off with 3 columns, with name and address, then code, and finally phone. These books seem to be from the 50s or early 60s, so code would refer to the area code for the telephone, as zip codes were introduced in 1963. These older address books make me wonder when the last address book was sold at the park, as technology has made them all but obsolete. This incoming postcard is sponsored by the Art Throwdown. Art Throwdown, or ATD, is an online craft hour on Instagram, starting at 9 p.m. Eastern, 6 Pacific. Be sure to check out Monday's ATD, which is usually hosted by paper artist Russ Romano. I see many amazing art projects, learned about awesome postmarks, postage stamp history, and a lot more on different episodes. It's great to stop in for an hour to watch someone craft or design something unique. Each host brings something a little different to each show. I'll list some of the regular hosts, or you can follow Russ Romano 2021 on Instagram. The front of my incoming postcard has Goofy standing on a beach looking out into the water. To the right of Goofy is a small hut waving a green flag with a blue wave with a bite taken out of it, and 4 surfboards leaning against the hut, one also with a bite taken out of it. It's postmarked June 15th, 2023 with a Zavola, Netherlands cancel, and 5 different postage stamps. It reads, "Hi Clocky, how are you? I see Goofy is searching for something, but who? Bye, Hester." Thank you so much for the postcard, Hester. Was it serendipity or just luck that I got this postcard on Shark Week? I got this postcard through Postcrossing, which has been a fun hobby over the last few years. I've received some great postcards, both Disney-related and non-Disney-related. I've been organizing them and posting photos on my Instagram stories, and have them pinned in my highlights on Instagram. I love the stories that I get and sometimes share here on the incoming postcard segment of the podcast. I also love how unique some of the postcards are, like this postcard with Goofy. I love the shark bite out of the flag and surfboard, also with Goofy looking out to sea, but his binoculars are hanging around his neck. Thanks for listening to Sent from Disneyland. If you enjoyed this podcast, please subscribe and tell your friends. It would be awesome to share your favorite episode. There are over 100 episodes to choose from. It would also help to leave a 5-star rating and comment at whatever podcast platform you use. If you would like to support the show financially, please check out our Patreon page at patreon.com/sentfromdisneyland. You can find me on Instagram and Facebook at Sent from Disneyland, or on Twitter at Sent from Disney. For questions and comments, send me a postcard addressed to Sent from Disneyland, P.O. Box 44, Hood, California, 95639. This podcast is not affiliated with Disney, the United States Postal Service, or any post office or Disney properties. Opinions expressed on this podcast belong to its host and guests of the Sent from Disneyland podcast.